Developing software is a challenging business. I mean, it's genuinely complicated. It is genuinely hard, and it is extraordinarily expensive.
Welcome to Sales Pipe Pros Podcast. Here's your host, Mike Petrosyan.
All right, everyone. Welcome to Sales Pipe Pros. I appreciate you taking the time. Today, my guest is an IT professional all the way from Sydney, Australia. My first Aussie on the podcast. After spending decades in software architecture business, he decided to start his own business, SaaSAccelerator, and is the author of his best-selling book, Doing IT the Right Way. I'm excited to have him with us today and share his insight and journey. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Stewart Marshall. Stewart, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Got to correct you, though. The book is actually called Doing It or Doing IT for Money.
Doing IT for money. My apologies.
That's okay. Not a problem.
That sounds actually a lot better than what I said. Appreciate you taking the time, Stewart. First question that I have for everyone these days is, how are you holding up during these crazy times?
They're crazy times. I've been lucky that I've worked from my home office in one form or another for the last decade. So this idea of being stuck at home every day is no big deal for me. Everybody around me is going mad though, so it's again a bit weird.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, and we're kind of used to the WFH work from home lifestyle. But I'm glad you said that because I'm not really familiar with your side of the field there. So you're okay with staying at home, just trucking along?
Well, look, I like human contact as much as the next man, right? It's sure. I would like to be out and about talking to people and pressing the flesh. And I had great plans this year to get over to the US for some of the SaaS conferences, and I had great plans for this year. But there we go. Yeah, we have to deal with what life throws us, and we'll make the best of it and move on.
Absolutely. Well, at least we're healthy. That's all that matters.
So far.
So let's kick it off, Stewart. I mean, you clearly have a very successful career. You went into entrepreneurship. You wrote your own book. But let's take it all the way a step back. Tell us a little bit about how your career started in software architecture.
I was a young man way back when, before you were born, Mike, I think, back in the 80s.
84.
When years began with a one and we'd only just got color. And I kind of needed to find something to do, and school. I'd done school, and I hadn't really fallen, into academia or anything. I kind of needed an education, needed a focus, and so I went to my local further education college and did a course in computers, which in 1989 was kind of like a cool thing to do, and I liked it, and got my first job in IT in 1991, and through that fell into working for a software company, and it was an Australian software company. And I got a job with them in the UK office in 1996, came to visit in here in 99, and thought Australia was awesome and very shiny and warm and lovely and very not English. And so my wife and I came over here to work. I literally emailed the boss in Australia and said, can I come and work in the Sydney office? And I got a one-word reply, which was yes. And that was that. And so we came to Australia, and so far nobody's kicked us out.
Well, I hope you stay, because I heard very good things about Sydney. But what inspired you? I mean, outside of lovely Sydney, outside of, I'm sure your wife had something to do with accepting the move, what really drove you to getting into that specific company in that specific field?
If I'm brutally honest, it fell under the heading of, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Okay.
That's fair. You get a job interviews and they say, what are your plans? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I was like, I don't know. If I'm still alive, I'll be pleased. You're kind of in that space. And so I kind of got a job with them because I'd used their product. And off the back of that, I found that I was in a place that very much felt like home. So it was just a natural progression for me. So when we came to Australia, I did support for a while and, sort of customer service type stuff. But then meandered across the other side of the room and joined the development team, because the product was a software platform called Lancer, which it was still going today, has been going for 30 years or so. And we got into this idea of building bits of the product with the product itself. And so it was a natural thing for me just to get in and start doing that and start making more product. And I kind of went from there to 2013 being the guy leading the project for the next big thing for the business.
Got it.
So it was, I was there. They kept giving me interesting things to do, so I stayed. And then, so 2017, I kind of came to the conclusion that after 20 years of doing it, I'd done my share, as it were. I'd done my dash, and it was time to do something else. And then you set out in this sort of business and say, well, what am I going to do? And at the time, I was a 48-year-old guy in IT, which I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Australia, if you're basically 50 and on IT, you're not getting another job. You're either in the job that you've got for the remainder of your existence, or you're going to go and do something very different. And I went for the latter. And the result of which was sort of coming out in 2018, spending a year in education and getting myself out from being a backroom boy, which I'd been for 20 years, and getting out into the world and meeting people. And I described, 2018, I described my network as everybody in this car, which kind of demonstrates pretty much where I was. A very big fish in a small pond, a very small pond for that matter. So came out and said, right, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I know, I'm going to go and help businesses make better use of their technology because they're really bad at it. They need some help. And so I thought, okay, I have no idea how to do that. So I did a course, which is essentially a course in modern marketing and that kind of idea. And they said, well, look, if you want to be known in your sphere, in your vertical, then you need to do things to demonstrate that. So I wrote a book. And I had the benefit of getting up in the morning with nothing to get in my way. So I wrote 60,000 words in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And doing it for money kind of just happened for me. It really wasn't, and it sounds terribly arrogant, but it really wasn't a difficult thing for me. I was very fortunate. It was just something I naturally did.
Well, after 20 years of being in the field, I'd imagine the words were just pouring out just from experience alone.
Well, I describe it as 30 years of angst, vitriol, and frustration.
That's
just sitting there with the keyboard, hammering away at the keyboard frantically, like sort of a demented monkey, and was fortunate that autocorrect on Word produced something reasonably readable.
So before we get into that book, let's talk a little bit about your business, SaaSAccelerator. What kind of value do you provide for your customers right now? And what is the overall vision that you have for this?
Okay, so the SaaS world's an interesting one. What we typically find is that the people who get into SaaS come in two forms. There are the technologists, so the programmer guys, the software people who think, hey, I've got an idea, I'm going to go write something. And they're okay, they can bootstrap stuff, no problem. Their time is pretty much their biggest cost. And they can go make some platform, and then they can worry about selling it. The other side of the fence, which is, I think, a more common variation, is the domain expert. So this will be somebody who's an expert in a particular space. They come along, they see a problem in their industry and think, hey, I know how to solve that. If I solve that, I can apply some technology to that, some software, and people can buy my platform, and I can have the next unicorn, or however, whatever the sort of thinking is. The problem with that is that they're not IT people, they're not software people. And developing software is a challenging business. I mean, it's genuinely complicated. It is genuinely hard, and it is extraordinarily expensive. It's one thing, some guy knocking up Flappy Birds in a fortnight, and it's another thing building a serious commercial platform.
Absolutely.
And what we typically see is that the communication issues between the software guys and the domain guys are expensive. And there's two ways of bridging that gap. You can either throw a vast amount of money at it until they understand, or you can hire somebody to act, as they refer to in Lean Sigma, as the voice of the customer. So, which is somebody like me. So somebody who can get in and actually bridge that communication gap and help everybody, sort of corral everybody together and make sure that we're all talking the same language and pointing at the right subject matter. Now that's well and good. That's the development process. But then the reality is, of course, you've got to sell it. And this isn't Field of Dreams. We're not Kevin Costner, and you can't build it and they won't come. Because it just doesn't work that way. I mean, you're a sales guy, Mike, you know this stuff. You've actually got to go and work your audience, right? You got to go and put some shoe leather in place and get on and do some work. But the tech guys, very often what you find is that they have this thing of, well, but look at the technology, look how awesome it is. Surely people will buy it because it's awesome. The answer is no. And the reason the answer is no is because for any given SaaS product, there are at least, for the vast majority, certainly 9 or 10 major competitors. So you can't just sell on features and benefits, because everybody's got features and everybody's got benefits, and they're all looking very, very samey. If you're selling a CRM, all CRMs look like CRMs. All sales platforms look like sales platforms. All marketing platforms look like marketing platforms. And believe it or not, there are over 7,000 of those.
Yep.
So this idea that we're just going to build some technology, it's going to sell and everything's going to be wonderful, it just isn't the case. And what we find is that people who build technology don't necessarily do it from the standpoint of understanding who their target audience is. And that's a crucial thing, right? Niching is just so important in any business, but it's extraordinarily important in a business where you're actually building the product that you're going to sell.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing trying to sell a product into a slice of a market. It's another thing if you're actually making the product as well. So that is something that needs to be brought into the development process. It needs to be brought into early days so that the product that we're making is targeted from the very beginning.
Got it.
Once you do that, then of course you can start getting into the marketing side of things, where you can actually go and then talk to your niche and have a conversation about the problems they've got and how you solve them, rather than saying, hey, look at my shiny technology, it's brilliant.
Fair enough.
So that's really the premise behind SaaSAccelerator, that we're trying to go out and find the right people, get them in to use the product, and then when they get there, they find a product that is absolutely perfect for them and easy to use, and they don't want to go to one of the other major competitors.
Interesting. Love the breakdown, Stewart. So let's talk about that. I mean, you had your entire career pretty much in IT in the back room, as you mentioned, and now you're out in the field talking to customers, selling your value, selling your vision, and trying to sell them on your overall product. How did you develop those type of skills to, out of nowhere, developing all the way to human interaction that's putting some money in the bank at this point?
Human interaction. Yeah, well, I'm an IT guy. We're not big on human interaction, right? Yeah, we like to go hide in the corner and keep away from sunlight and other such things. I did a bit of pre-sales way back in the 90s when I was a lot slimmer than I am now. And it's interesting. I get to look back at that and think how terrible we were. Well, I mean, we were woeful, right? I mean, and I still sold stuff. It was, most of the value today comes from the fact that I did the course in 2018, which when somebody sits down and says, well, this is the logic behind it, you're like, well, that just makes sense, right? It's easy with the benefit of hindsight, right? But it really was that. I did this course and they said, well, how are you going to sell yourself? And you're like, well, I'm valuable to everybody. And they went, so who is going to buy? And I don't know. Go, right. And so having gone through my own process of learning how to position me, it was like the light switch came on. And it's suddenly like I just had a light bulb moment. Now I understand why software sales is so appalling in what they do today, because they're all standing there shouting about their features and benefits and nobody gives a shit. So it was really, I'm an accidental marketer. I'm an accidental sales guy, because it was a necessity out of a choice. I made a choice to go down a particular path and then realized I had to go learn some stuff.
Fair enough. Well, at least you're honest about it. That's what I love the most. So me as a sales guy, I have a specific market that I always like to play around with. I have a specific type of people that I like, or companies that I enjoy working with. Do you have a specific target market that you tend to go after? Not just from a monetary standpoint, but from overall experience, the type of vision they have, anything along those lines helps.
I made myself a couple of promises when I left industry. The first was that I was never going to give the best of myself again to a business that wasn't prepared to reciprocate. So I'm a reasonably bright guy. I'm reasonably well educated. I've been doing this a while, so I kind of know what's going on. And if I'm going to go help a business, I want them to be the sort of business who stands up and says, yes, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. I want some vision. I want some clarity. I want some enthusiasm. I don't want some guy who just comes along and says, yeah, can you help us sell more? Like, why? Well, yeah, I mean, if it's just the money, fine, then I'm going to charge you a lot more, right? If the answer is because I want to do some good in the world and I want to make a difference, then I'm all ears. And that's the second promise I made to myself, was that if I'm going to do this, it's not going to be purely for my own benefit. I want to get paid, right? I want to get paid well, but I would really like what I do to have some meaning. So, for example, I've just been talking recently to a couple of guys in Singapore who have a fintech business. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something together. That remains to be seen. One of the partners or the founders of the business, his aim is to help 100 million people sort of do better savings, something along those lines. And I was like, that's the sort of business I want to work with. Early position SaaS businesses, so they're coming up sort of MVP, that kind of area, version one. They're still early in their life. They're still moving forward, looking to expand and grow and make a difference in the world. Combine all of those, that for me is a perfect client.
Gotcha. So with respect to COVID, things are really hot in tech right now. Ironically, I don't know how it happened. There's a lot of unemployment stuff, but at the same time, it seems to be thriving because people rely on technology in order to communicate, get their stuff done, get stuff delivered to them, et cetera. So has it impacted your business in a positive way or a negative way? And tell me a little bit more about either one you pick.
Both. I suspect I'm a winner and a loser. I'm undoubtedly a loser because I've lost projects based on this. Simply by the money has just disappeared. We were going to do this. It was all great. And now somebody's bandwidth is looking somewhere else. And the investors that were going to be on board, who were putting in 100K each, have decided they're all going to keep their money now. So I've lost out on a number of big projects, unfortunately, that have just not gone ahead.
Where's the win?
The win is a little vaguer, but I think is massively valuable from a positioning perspective. And it's really that I've actually spent the time to develop a better brand.
That's fair.
So, I mean, if one's judgment of success is dollars in the bank, then no, COVID hasn't been kind to me at all, right? If one's measure is understanding of the world you're in, marketing, brand building, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and networking, then yeah, this has been a really good time for me because I've had the opportunity to spend it developing what I think is a far superior brand to where I was sort of 12 months or so ago. Yeah. So it's good in that sense. The other thing, as you alluded to, is that SaaS is on the rise. I mean, it is absolutely everywhere now. I spent last year trying to get business leaders to sort of move their technology forward and look at how they could really maximize and leverage their work. And yet, yeah, I got, crickets. Like, no, we'll be all right, mate. No, everything's good. No, we're fine. Nothing to do here. Everything's great. And COVID has done more for digital transformation, in 3 or 4 months than an army of me could have done in a lifetime. Businesses have just been forced forward. And a whole new set of mindset has come with it. I now have meetings dressed as I am now, in a sweater and a t-shirt, looking scruffy. I now talk to CEOs around the planet. Yeah, same as you. I'm talking to CEOs around the planet, and kind of, being casual has been normalized. The pretense and the nonsense that went with it all has just disappeared. And now I'm talking to guys, and literally talking to a guy the other day who's in his cupboard, literally in his closet, in his bedroom. He's got a bunch of clothes hanging up behind him and more toilet roll than you can shake a stick at on the shelf above. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? So, COVID has been a massive change for me, and it's dragged me out of my corner and encouraged me to be certainly far more international in my reach. I'm comfortable that the long term COVID has actually done me an enormous favor.
I believe it kind of did a lot of favors for a lot of people. I mean, granted, there are a lot of people sick around the world right now, struggling. God forbid that happens. But for me, COVID is 2020 in general has been the year of humility in terms of myself and really understanding what this could have happened to my family. So I completely agree with you, Stewart. I mean, there's a lot to learn from it, but at the same time, I feel like we're slowly peeling back who we are. The onion's slowly being peeled back, and the true colors are being shown of who we are, and in a positive way too.
It's been a massive catalyst. Yeah, I mean, as you say, millions of ill people. However, the number of people dead now is horrific, and heaven forbid that it should come any closer to my door than it already is. But there's a long way to go in this.
Sure.
But the flip side is that it has, as you say, it's ripped away a whole bunch of veneer, and there's I think a far greater level of authenticity in the market now. It's also been a great catalyst for business for good. I hang out with quite a few people who are in the sort of the purpose marketing, cause marketing space, and business for good and whatever else, and huge surge in people looking to do a business that makes a difference in the world, and actually doesn't just leverage the cheapest guy and the cheapest supply chain. Is now actually about making sure people are paid properly, and all of this stuff from go to woe. So I think it's been very good in that sense.
Got it. Now I try to not be so entrenched in the news because I feel like a lot of BS is floating around the media these days. So I'm actually talking to an actual national from Australia. How is it impacting your local environment? Are people panicking? Are people just kind of brushing it off? a little 50-50 here to get in front of it for you, but love to hear about what the actual culture looks like in Sydney, given everything that's happened.
We went through the same, 7 levels of grief as everybody else to start with. Like, no, this isn't going to be a problem. Oh shit, it is a problem. Oh bollocks, it's a really big problem. And then we all shut our doors, and people started getting a bit snippy at each other. And the one thing to note about Australia is that we topped the league tables on panic buying.
Really?
Oh yeah, we're a rich country. We
So
can
you bought all
afford
the
panic
toilet paper basically off the shelves right away.
Oh yeah, I was mad. I mean, seriously, just some bonkers stuff, right? So we led the world in that. So we're punching above our weight again. Little island nation in the corner. We can take on the world when it comes to panic buying. But we've got that out of the way. We've calmed down. Everybody's realised the world isn't going to end immediately. It has been horrific. We've had shutdown. A lot of small business has gone. Will disappear for it. I mean, very bad for the economy, obviously.
Absolutely.
A lot of people suffering and doing it tough, as they like to say in Australia. But Sydney at the moment is okay. We're only getting a few cases a day, and most of them we understand. And so it's kind of calm, but you kind of get the feeling that it could go terribly badly very quickly. And it has done so down in Victoria, which is, down the south of Australia. They're up to, I think, 300 and some odd cases or so a day at the moment.
Wow.
And they're under a greater level of lockdown than we are. We're doing a little better than the US, happily.
That's good to hear. I mean, so much to say about this. I have family in Russia. I have friends in the UK. I have friends in Spain, all over America. And it seems like the response is pretty much the same around the world. It's businesses are shutting down. It's kind of a 50-50 between people taking it seriously versus people that are completely panicking. Jobs are being lost. Lives are being lost. But at the same time, there's smiles still, and hope for a lot of people. So it sounds like Sydney and Australia in general are kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, we're doing okay at the moment. It's genuinely hard for the people that have found themselves without work, and we have a lot of temporary visa holders, and Australian citizens have been given a safety net. We're being paid by the government to stop the world falling to pieces completely, which is good. But if you're a temporary visa holder and you've come in from you're a foreign national, then you're not getting this at the moment. And there's a lot of them, about 1 million, I think, who are having a lot tougher time than me. We'll get through it. We've survived worse. We've had world wars.
Absolutely. That's what I wanted to hear. We're going to get through it. Hell or high water, we'll get through it.
And look, Mike, in all honesty, mate, if we die, then, there we go.
That's what happens.
That'll end that conversation, won't it? So
at least we got a chance to meet, Stewart.
Yeah, there's no point of worrying about it too much, right? We'll just get on with it and do our best.
One of my favorite quotes is "Life is short, live it." It's just the way it is.
My mom says this isn't a dress rehearsal. You don't get to have another go.
Yep. Who was the guy at the Golden Globes? Man, he said basically they're all jokes. We're all going to die soon anyway, and there's no sequel. I forgot what his name is.
It's got to be Ricky Gervais. It's got to be Ricky Gervais.
He is. Love that quote. I mean, he totally went off the wall for the rest of the show, but love that quote. So let's talk about your book, Stewart. I know you mentioned it. You banged away, I think, 60,000 words, I think, in 3 weeks you mentioned. Very impressive stuff. Is that one of your passions is writing, or is this just something you wanted to do your whole life?
I always thought I'd like to write.
But
I never did, because you never do, right? These things, so many of these things require a catalyst. They require that moment when something happens where you go, and mine was doing a course, and they said, if you want to have some authority in the space, become an author. Like, okay, I'll go and write a book then.
And that's it.
And I mean, part of the course there was some education around the ideas of writing. But as I said before, I was very fortunate that when I sat down to start writing, I found that I had a lot to say. So I literally could get up in the morning, flick through the news, check my industry emails and various things, and then go, right, what am I writing about today? Oh, I'm writing about backups today. Okay, let's go write about backups. And you write 1,000 words. It's a couple of pieces of A4. When you think of it and you start breaking it down, 400 words is a piece of A4. Another 1,000 words is 2.5.
Yeah.
Which is not a massive amount of writing. So I do 1,000 before lunch, then go and hit a bucket of golf balls or something, have a bite to eat, come back, do
Now
another
you're
500,
talking.
600, take the dog out, come back, do another few hundred, and I've written a couple of thousand words. As I say, I was extraordinarily fortunate. I just got up in the morning and wrote, and I found it,
Therapeutic sounds like it was almost just
very, very, certainly very cathartic. It was 30 years of, angst, vitriol, and frustration. Just there it was.
Do you feel like you got it all out, or do you feel like there's a book number 2 coming out sometime soon?
Number 2 is on its way. Number 2 will be a much greater focus on software and SaaS, probably in particular. And my partner in SaaSAccelerator is Joanna Inch, who's a tech marketing specialist, and it was her idea. She approached me and said, "Look, I'm really good at this whole tech marketing thing. Want to focus on SaaS businesses, but I don't know anything about software. I need a software guy." I went, "Okay, I'm in, because what a great idea. Have I not thought of this before? I'm a software guy. I should focus on this more." So it was a natural place for me to end up. And the second book will almost certainly be on SaaS, and probably in partnership with Jo. She'll do the marketing side and I'll do the software side, and we'll get we've only got to knock out 30,000 words each then, so should be over and done within a couple of weeks.
Love it.
Or so.
Well, can't wait to check it out. I actually want to order your other book. I mean, I'll be honest, I worked in SaaS pretty much the last decade, and I don't speak IT very well. I let solutions architects, I let CTOs handle all that good stuff. Me, it's all about negotiations, business rating value, and keeping a good relationship going. So I'm not sure if I'll get too much value out of the book, but at the same time, putting a face to some words, I feel like it's going to be productive.
So I'd say the value of the first book, and the subtitle's the clue, is it's a business leader's guide to improving profit per person. And there's a fundamental idea behind this, which is that this isn't about people or technology. This is about people and technology. The whole point of a tool is for us to use it. Tools without us using them are fairly mediocre. If I use my standard example is a digging stick, which has been used by indigenous tribes around the world for many years to dig roots out of the ground. But until they pick it up and use it to dig a root out of the ground, it's just a stick. It's just a thing that exists. It becomes a tool when we use it. So this symbiosis that we have between the two is really important. And the book is all about the use of technology, and nothing in it about technology itself, really.
Absolutely.
So you're with a business mind, you'll be able to read it and go, "Oh yeah, I get the point of that." It's not a book for technologists.
Well, I mean, thanks for correcting me on the title, by the way. Doing IT for money is already, it's something I've already done for the last God knows how long. So yeah, definitely love to get a good perspective on it. With respect to your business, I saw you also did some speaking as well at local university. How did you
I try when possible to get out in front of people.
It's kind of hard these days, I'd imagine.
Not gone well this year, oddly. I've got a plan, which I'm like so many of my ideas is kind of half implemented and therefore going nowhere. To do a Q&A, a series of Q&A sessions. So excuse me.
Oh boy!
So that I just for anybody who wants to come and talk about SaaS, I just want to get them online, and we'll get 50 people in a Zoom, and we'll just have a chin wag at myself, and we'll get some other guys, 2 or 3 on a panel, that kind of idea. And I'll get around to it at some point. But yeah, I did some stuff last year talking to the young masters of management at Sydney University, which is one of the world's more renowned management courses, and just great fun. Just really great to be able to walk into a room with 30 or 40 young adults. I don't know, 20. I don't know what the proper name for these people these days, but young adults, we'll say, early 20s. They're coming out of education. They're in early years in industry, and they're learning very quickly that everything they learn at university is a waste of space. That the real world just doesn't fit into what they get taught, really. So just really nice to be able to talk to them and say, this is the world. This is how I see it. This is my experience. You can learn from it, agree with me, disagree with me, whatever it's just great to actually be able to get out and share information and knowledge.
Absolutely. Love it. And last question for you, Stewart. So you have a clear passion for doing business the right way with your SaaSAccelerator. Obviously, you want to work with customers that give back. You're obviously writing books to share your content and your wisdom with the world, and you're doing some speaking engagements with the younger adults of the world. So what's next for Stewart Marshall? What is the vision here? Do you want to grow SaaSAccelerator? Obviously, you already have a second book coming out, but where do you see this path going, I guess, for you specifically in your professional career?
Well, I'm going to take you back to my original comment of how did I end up doing this, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. And you know, you read about these people who are, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world, who get up in the world and they're absolutely driven to do something today, and bang bang, this is what they want, and good for them. Yeah, if that's how they want to find their way through the world, then that works for them. It's good for them, but it's not for me. I'd like to think that I could turn this into some enormous empire, but I'm fairly comfortable that I won't. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to try and make $1. I'm going to try and help some people. And I'm optimistic that provided I'm continue in the vein I'm in, that I'll find a reasonable path through life, and I'll help some people, and I'll do the right thing. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar thing. It'd be nice if it turns into $1 or $2. I'll be pleased. You know, as long as I get to work with some good people, do some good stuff, that will do me very nicely.
You're all about humility, Stewart. I love it. I mean, your vision.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Have you seen, I mean, I'm Mr. SaaS, right?
By the way, where did that title, Mr. Sassy, where did that come from?
So that came from a guy down in Melbourne by the name of Terry Wilson, who runs a company called Chat Metrics, and we hang out online a bit. And I wrote something one day, and he went, "Oh well, you would say that inverted commas, Mr. SaaS." And I'm kind of like, do you know what? I might run with that. Yeah, why not? And so a very good friend of mine who's a cartoonist, Steve Panozzo, I said to him, you know, can you do me a character? Can you do me a character? You know, if I'm going to run with this brand of Mr. SaaS, then let's do it. Let's really run with the brand of Mr. SaaS. Let's get a character behind it. And that's what you see on my posts on LinkedIn now. It's all about building this brand of Mr. SaaS and saying, well, if you want to stand out in your market, you know, go stand out in your market. Go wear a bright pink shirt and be the only guy in IT with, you know, who looks like that and bangs on. Yeah, there are very few people in the IT industry who are like me, rightly or wrongly, well, you know, good or bad. So yeah, it's really just it seemed like a good idea at the time, Mike. I think is where we're coming back to very quickly.
It was catchy. I liked it. I appreciated it. And one of the reasons why I reached out to you, seemed like a good person to meet and get to know. So really appreciate you taking the time, Stewart.
Yeah, my pleasure.
For taking the time, and thank you for sharing your insight. Can't wait to read your book, and good luck with the next one. Definitely be seeing on the Amazon shelves.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate your time, Stewart. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for joining. For more episodes, visit salespipepros.com.